By 1944, World War II had raged for nearly 5 years, engulfing continents and drawing millions of people into its devastating conflict. The world had witnessed unimaginable destruction, with cities reduced to rubble and entire nations fighting for survival. The Allies and Axis powers were locked in a relentless global struggle, clashing on battlefields from North Africa to the Pacific, and from the frozen forests of Eastern Europe to the skies over Britain. Every front was a test of endurance, strategy, and sheer willpower. On the Eastern Front, the Soviet Union was bearing the brunt of the fighting, facing wave after wave of German attacks. The Red Army's sacrifices were immense, and their leaders demanded that the Western Allies open a second front in Europe to relieve the crushing pressure. The Allies understood that only a massive invasion across the English Channel could truly challenge Nazi Germany's iron grip on Western Europe. The coast of France, heavily fortified and fiercely defended, became the focal point of their hopes and fears. Planning for this operation, codenamed Operation Overlord, had been underway for years. Allied leaders and strategists meticulously studied every detail, from tides and weather to enemy troop movements, knowing that a single miscalculation could spell disaster. The goal was clear: land a vast army on the beaches of France, split German forces, and establish a foothold that would allow the Allies to push deeper into occupied territory. This would mark the beginning of the liberation of Europe, inspiring hope among occupied peoples, and signaling that the tide of war was finally turning. But the Germans were prepared. They had transformed the coastline into a fortress, constructing the Atlantic Wall, an extensive network of bunkers, mines, barbed wire, and beach obstacles designed to repel any invasion force. The Allies, with overwhelming industrial power and air superiority, faced the daunting task of crossing the Channel, braving enemy fire, and breaching these formidable defenses. The scale of the operation was unprecedented, requiring coordination on a level never before seen. Success would mark the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany, opening the way for Allied armies to advance into the heart of Europe. But failure could be catastrophic, potentially prolonging the war for years and costing countless more lives. The stakes were immense, millions of lives, and the fate of an entire continent hung in the balance. Civilians, soldiers, and leaders alike waited anxiously, knowing that the outcome would shape the future of the world. The world watched as the Allies prepared for the largest amphibious assault in history, assembling vast fleets and mobilizing troops for the decisive moment. Everything depended on the choices made in the months leading up to D-Day, choices that would determine not just the outcome of a single battle, but the destiny of generations to come. Operation Overlord was the Allied blueprint for invading Northwest Europe, a plan that would become one of the most ambitious military operations in history. Months of careful preparation, secrecy, and coordination went into crafting every detail, as the fate of millions hung in the balance. The operation was led by General Dwight D. Eisenhower, whose leadership and resolve inspired confidence among the Allied forces. Eisenhower's ability to unite American, British, and Canadian commanders under a single vision was crucial to the plan's success. The plan called for simultaneous landings on 5 Normandy beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juno, and Sword, by American, British, and Canadian forces. Each beach had its own unique challenges, from treacherous cliffs to heavily fortified German defenses, demanding precise coordination and immense bravery from the troops. Airborne divisions would drop behind enemy lines under the cover of darkness to seize key bridges, roads, and towns, aiming to disrupt German reinforcements and secure vital positions before the main assault began. Timing was critical. The invasion required a full moon for visibility, a low tide to expose German obstacles, and the first light of dawn to guide the landing craft. This rare combination of conditions meant there was only a narrow window for success. Nearly 7,000 ships and over 11,000 aircraft would support the assault, forming the largest armada ever assembled. These forces would transport and protect hundreds of thousands of troops, vehicles, and supplies across the treacherous English Channel, braving enemy fire and unpredictable weather. Every detail had to work in harmony. There would be no second chance. Soldiers rehearsed for weeks, commanders pored over maps, and equipment was checked and rechecked to ensure nothing was left to chance. The operation's complexity was unprecedented, and its success depended on flawless execution. Communication, timing, and coordination between land, sea, and air forces had to be perfect. The Allies were about to gamble everything on a single, audacious strike. The tension was palpable as soldiers waited for the signal, knowing the outcome would shape the future of the world. The fate of Europe rested on the beaches of Normandy. Victory here would mark the beginning of the end for Nazi Germany, but failure would have unthinkable consequences for the free world. When planning the invasion of Nazi-occupied France, the most obvious and logical site was the Pas de Calais. This region, just across the English Channel, was the closest point to Britain, making it the shortest and most direct route for an Allied assault. The Germans recognized this as well, and so they heavily fortified the coastline, building massive bunkers, gun emplacements, and miles of barbed wire defenses. Hitler and his top commanders were convinced the Allies would strike at Calais. They concentrated their best troops, tanks, and artillery in the region, turning it into a fortress bristling with firepower. Attacking Calais head-on would have meant facing the enemy at their strongest point, risking catastrophic losses and possibly dooming the entire operation before it began. Instead, Allied planners devised a bold deception. They decided to turn Calais into a decoy, drawing German attention away from the real invasion site. Through Operation Fortitude, the Allies created an elaborate phantom army. They set up fake camps, deployed inflatable tanks and trucks, and generated a flood of misleading radio traffic. Even the legendary General Patton was assigned as the supposed commander of this fictitious force. Meanwhile, a network of double agents and spies fed carefully crafted false intelligence to the Germans, reinforcing the illusion that Calais was the true target. The deception worked so well that even after the Normandy landings began, German commanders hesitated to move their forces, convinced it was just a diversion. Their most powerful panzer divisions and elite troops remained stationed near Calais, waiting for an attack that would never come, unable to reinforce Normandy in time. This masterful deception bought the Allies precious hours and days, allowing them to secure a vital foothold on the beaches of Normandy and begin the liberation of Western Europe. The success of D-Day was not just a triumph of military might, but of cunning and psychological warfare, convincing the enemy to look the other way at the critical moment. The greatest invasion in history began not with a direct assault, but with a masterstroke of misdirection and strategic brilliance. Normandy, west of Calais, offered wide, firm beaches ideal for landing troops, tanks, and vehicles. The region's open terrain and road network allowed rapid movement inland, while the nearby port of Cherbourg was a vital objective for resupply. Normandy was close enough for Allied air cover, yet far enough to surprise the Germans. The 50-mile front allowed 5 divisions to land side by side, overwhelming local defenders. The choice of Normandy balanced surprise, logistics, and tactical advantage. It was the only place where the Allies could land a force large enough to succeed. The fate of the invasion and the war rested on these beaches. Unlike Calais, Normandy's defenses were thinner, with fewer bunkers and less heavy artillery. The Germans, convinced the main attack would come elsewhere, left Normandy guarded by lower-quality troops and scattered panzer divisions. Disagreements between Rommel and von Rundstedt over tank deployment left German armor poorly positioned to respond. Many defenders were older men or conscripts from occupied countries, lacking the elite status of Calais units. The Allies exploited these weaknesses, striking where the Atlantic Wall was at its thinnest. Normandy was not undefended, but it was the weakest link in Hitler's coastal fortress. The Allies chose their battlefield wisely. Surprise was everything. The Allies' elaborate deception convinced the Germans to expect an attack at Calais, not Normandy. As a storm battered the Channel in early June, German commanders relaxed, certain no invasion was possible. Many left their posts, including Rommel, who went to Germany for his wife's birthday. Allied meteorologists spotted a brief break in the weather for June 6th. Eisenhower made the fateful call, "We'll go." The invasion fleet set out under cover of darkness, catching the Germans off guard. Key enemy leaders were absent as the first Allied troops stormed ashore. The element of surprise proved decisive. The Normandy landing succeeded thanks to Allied innovation and preparation. Engineers built Mulberry Harbors, portable artificial ports, to unload supplies directly onto the beaches. Pluto pipelines pumped fuel under the channel, keeping the advancing armies moving. Specialized tanks, known as Hobart's Funnies, cleared mines, bridged obstacles, and smashed bunkers. These inventions overcame German defenses and sustained the invasion. Allied industry and ingenuity turned the impossible into reality. Every detail, from logistics to technology, was planned for victory. The Allies were ready for anything the Germans could throw at them. The decision to land in Normandy changed the course of history. By avoiding Calais and striking where the enemy was weakest, the Allies achieved surprise and broke through Hitler's Atlantic Wall. Within days, the beachheads were linked, and supplies poured in through the Mulberry Harbors. Germany was forced to fight on two fronts, hastening its defeat. Had the Allies chosen Calais, the invasion might have failed, with devastating consequences for Europe. Normandy was the key that unlocked victory. The courage, planning, and ingenuity of D-Day shaped the world we know today. On those beaches, freedom's fate was decided.